Good morning, folks. Thanks for joining. We started 1 minute late. Sorry about that. All of the little checks I have to do on Streamlabs to make sure that the description has come through and hasn't been overwritten by the last one. I have to do it manually every time. I have to open up YouTube, copy and paste stuff across because Streamlabs are just like, hey, give us money and we won't give you a service that works. But it's the only way to multi-stream onto Twitch, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's not the only way. You can do it through OBS, through a plugin that is on GitHub on a Japanese language page. Thanks for joining today. We're going to be checking out 3 games that I've called Zappy Pew Pew games. They are not games in the same genre. They are games that share a kind of aesthetic link of being these kind of colourful arcadey games, I guess. So we've got LinkShift, Flagship down. A LinkShift I've played once before. It looks like it's come on quite a way since then. The game design was already pretty solid, and it looks like the developer's been doing a lot of work on VFX and kind of the art direction of that game. So I'm very stoked to play that. I'm going to play it first. Flagship Down demo is another patrons game. These first 2 games are both from patrons, and then Cosmic Flesh Overdrive is just one that's been sitting in the queue for a little while. And before we get started, I'm just going to kind of give you a little bit. Sorry, my hair is wild. I didn't check it before we went live. I'm going to give you a little bit of behind the scenes. I know that those of you who have been tuning in regularly will know how this works already, but I think it helps to sort of re-explain how the channel works. And I'm going to kind of show you the spreadsheet that makes it all work behind the scenes as well, because I think that's interesting, and it's kind of helpful to the patrons to see how the channel is operating, because ultimately you kind of pay for this and you make it work. So when I first started the channel, I was taking people's games they were sending me, and I was doing kind of like whole videos. It's going to be decent today. I just saw the chat go dead on Streamlabs for a second, so sorry if that's the case. I think it may just be that I need to move my... I've moved some stuff around in the room, and I'm not sure if the Wi-Fi receiver is working properly. Games Over Qualia is very similar to what I was doing when I started the channel, and it's a very, very good channel. Someone brought this up in our Discord the other day. He does like a deep dive into a game that he's sent for 10, 15, 20 minutes. And it's kind of very similar to the format that I started off doing. And then I started to feel guilty because I had this backlog of like 200 games and there was no way I could get through them all. So I started streaming instead of doing these longer videos. But I very strongly recommend Games Over Qualia if you like what I do. He's very thoughtful, and he, basically plays the games, talks about what he's experiencing, explains how the mechanics and the aesthetics of the game are kind of leading to him feeling that way, and tries to give, developers an insight into how their games will make people feel, which is why it's called Games Over Qualia. And it's very similar to what I do. He's a lot calmer, I would say. I've had people message me and say, oh, you're really chilled out. I listen to you to fall asleep, which is the kind of compliment I don't expect to get, because in my head I feel quite manic. But Games Over Qualia, if you like that kind of stuff, he's even more kind of chilled out, and he's just sort of describing what he's experiencing. But if you go back to like the earliest bits of the channel, it's like I'm doing these very long videos on one game. And then the channel picked up, and I started to get all of these Patreon supporters. And then we did, okay, we're going to do a monthly Patreon stream where I just play your games. And then we kind of got to the point where the Discord community and the Patreon community is like, I don't know, 400 or 500 paid members now. So I had so many games that were coming in from the Patreon community, but I was kind of rushing those streams. So I kind of pivoted. And again, sorry if you've heard this a million times before, but it's a change that's only come in the past couple of months. And people who only intermittently watch the channel won't necessarily understand. But on the website, if you go to indiegameclinic.com, this is the form where anyone can submit a game, right? And the only rule really is that the game can't be out yet. That's always been the rule, because I mean, there's quite a few rules actually. There's like 5 big rules here, but that's the main thing. The game can't be out yet. It needs to be a work in progress. We're not like reviewing commercial games. Occasionally I do that because this channel isn't just like a service, it's also just my personal channel to kind of talk about indie games and how they're made and muse about those things. So occasionally I will just pick up, you know, Amber Spire because it looks interesting and I want to play Amber Spire, or Death Bulge, which is a game that's been out for a couple of years because, you know, my colleague on a podcast made that game and it looks fun and like something that would interest me. But I would say that at least 75-80% of what we do on the channel is looking at work in progress games. So anyone can submit a game on indiegameclinic.com to the form. The form is quite long, and that's kind of, it's a little bit of weaponized bureaucracy because I want to make sure that people really want their game critiqued and aren't just sending it out as a marketing thing. Often I receive games where it's very clearly, you know, they're launching in a couple of months and they want some marketing. And that means that it's going to be counterproductive for me to like pick it apart and tell you what's wrong with it on a stream. So I use the answers from this form to work out whether or not the application is an appropriate one for the channel. It's quite painstaking, but ultimately I don't want to be like ripping games to shreds if that's not what people submitted them for. And actually, if you go over onto our Patreon channel, here's all the stuff that's on Patreon. It's all color coded. So like the lowest tier of Patreon gets you all the green stuff. The next one up gets you all the blue stuff. But I occasionally put blog posts on here, which are just like a free newsletter. That's one me moaning about AI for like 1 billion words. But I did recently put one up that explained how I sort of score things for appearing on a stream. And Master Lennox has a good question in the chat. I'll get to that in a minute. I'll do this little talk about how this works, and then I'll answer your question, and then we'll get on to today's games. Yeah, we have a monthly Q&A that's like a supporters only thing. And then... here we go. Here's the post. How I pick what to play on IGC streams. So this kind of gives you a bit of a background in how the games get from indiegameclinic.com from that form and how I choose which to play. Now, one of the best things that anyone can do is fill out that. There's like a bonus bit in the form where it's like anything else to say. One of the best things people can do is write a personal note there that sort of indicates that you watch the channel and understand what it's for. A lot of time people just send me press kit type stuff, and the problem with sending me a press kit is it indicates that you think your game is already perfect and you're marketing it to me rather than asking for help, and that's not what the stream is for. It's for, you know, sometimes it's for picking apart the games and saying what could be better about them. Sometimes we get a really good game and it doesn't need that, but we're still analyzing it. We're not here going like, you know, it's just not just like a fun time game stream, although sometimes it turns into that. It is an analysis stream. But yeah, there's a blog post there that kind of takes you through how that all works. And then the way it's worked recently is I have this scheduling spreadsheet. Welcome. We're 10 minutes in, we're in the spreadsheets, but hey, you're all game design sickos, so that's fine. And then what I do, you can see today is the Zappy Pew Pew bit up here, and it's filtered to only show stuff that hasn't already been. So I can see, okay, here's the 2 members games, LinkShift and Flagship down, submitted by patrons through our form over in the private Discord. And then Cosmic Flesh Overdrive. This little symbol just means that it comes out soon. And this little symbol means I've had a look at it and I think it looks kind of cool. And then that kind of gives it a score. So if I go over onto the public form, here's all of the games that have been submitted, right? And there's like nearly 300 in the queue at the moment. And I will go through and like give them a score for certain things. And that will like push them up when I go in there to pick the games for the next month, I'll have like a priority list based on things like, when I looked at it, did it look cool? Is there a personal message that indicates the person actually watches the channel and wants the feedback and isn't just like sending it out to 100 people? All of those types of things contribute to this score. And then when I sit down to do my scheduling, I look at the games that have been submitted by our patrons, like LinkShift and Flagship down, and I go, ooh, they're similar in some way. Like I said, this time it's like an aesthetic similarity rather than a gameplay similarity. And then I'll pick 1 or 2 things from the other list and make a stream out of it. So that's what we're getting today. I'm going to load up LinkShift and get it ready in the background. And then I'm going to look at that question in the chat, which is a difficult question and one I need to do a full video essay on at some point. Obscura said, I sent a game a while back and have been hoping it would be played. It was a bit too quick to submit, but I did show it off. I mean, if you're in the Discord, did you send it to indiegameclinic.com? Because if you're in the Discord, you can jump the queue now and you can send it to that. You can send it to the patrons one, which is a different submission thing. So Rain, yeah, that spread is a fun spreadsheet. One is taking data from one form, one is taking data from another, which I only just recently learnt you could do. And then the scheduling one checks for the URLs and everything and pulls them into the scheduling one. And then the other spreadsheets like tick them off if they exist in the scheduling one and then hide them. So it kind of gradually sort of self-writes. I updated that a month or two ago and rebuilt it. Spreadsheet, yeah. I mean, I had to do, like, my first job back in 2015. I got my first job in games when I was like 28 back in 2015. And so much of it was spreadsheets. Because it was like the game had already been designed and I was there to like balance it and design the economy and stuff like that. So, Obscura Master Lennox, sorry, I wanted to answer your question. Master Lennox said, good morning, I made a new game, but now my question is, when is it an indie game? Is there a description when a game is an indie game? It's a very good question. And I think there are two great video essays on this that I read recently, and they're not by developers. They are sort of, well, actually, one of them is. These are more kind of cultural questions. I have my own answer, and I think the actual question you've just asked, I'm going to do a video essay on it at some point. So let me just have a look. Over on the Indie Game Clinic YouTube homepage, I've made some playlists which aren't actually my videos. So you go, there's all our stuff at the top, right? We've got our streams. We've got this one's video essays. I don't know why the name's disappeared. Longer video essays. Game Developers Library podcast, which the next one should be coming in the next couple of weeks. This is all the stuff for beginners, this white and pink stuff. And then I've got these playlists down at the bottom, which aren't actually Indie Game Clinic stuff. They're just stuff that I kind of co-sign and think is cool, right? So there's one called Design Methodologies and Attitudes, Interaction and Interface Design, Systems and Economies, Narratives. And then there's Indie Games Culture here. And this has a couple of videos in that I think are quite good. I really like Ace Roller's essay, Indie Doesn't Really Mean Independent. And I really like Pixel A Day's essay, We're Celebrating the Wrong Indie Games. These are both cultural takes on what does it mean for a game to be an indie game. And I don't really agree entirely with either of them, but I think they're both really good ones to like sit with and think about. I think my perspective really is that when we say a game is independent, we mean it's like independently created and the developer got to sort of decide what they made, right? So the funding aspect of it is like, you know, like bedroom programmers might say, oh, if a studio has 30 people, it's not an indie game. Or if a game has Kickstarter backing, it's not an indie game. Or if a game is like funded by a publisher like Annapurna or Devolver, it's not an indie game. But I think in those cases, it's like, well, the developers are still making what they want, right? And what matters to players when they think of what an indie game is this game like a kind of corporately made, designed by committee game, like kind of companies like Ubisoft and big free-to-play companies make? Because that's what indie gamers care about, right? They want to play an interesting game that is like an expression of a particular person or a particular set of people's taste, right? And if you take an extreme example, like Yacht Club Games, who made Shovel Knight, I think they had a team of 5 when they formed, and they had a rule that was basically like anything that went in the game needed to be unilaterally decided upon, which is quite a strange way of running a studio. Often you would go, okay, we've got a 2-person team, we've got a tech lead and an art lead, and we're going to work together and we're going to take responsibility for different parts of the game, you know? So it might be that you know, you both care about the gameplay, but you care about different parts of the gameplay. And the tech lead cares more about the economy and the systems, and the art lead does care about the gameplay, but they care more about the feel and stuff like that, right? So whatever the arrangement is, it might be one person making all the decisions. It might be a group of people unilaterally making creative decisions. It might be split between people. But the point really of what makes indie games appealing is this what the developers actually wanted to make, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why I find it so bothersome when people talk about stuff like the Steam meta and like, what game should I make to crack the Steam meta? Because as soon as you're in that kind of way of thinking, you're getting into like design by committee, data-driven design. And personally, that was why I got out of the games industry and why I started this channel. Was I didn't want to work in like free-to-play games companies or metaverse games companies where everything was trend-driven and everything was like, what's the best chance of success based on the last 6 months of what people... I wanted to just like make things that I thought were cool and help other people to do the same. And to me, indie games is like a subculture, like punk rock, where it's people doing things that they think are cool. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I think that you shouldn't be commercially minded at all. I think that each of us, like myself, everyone else in the chat, is probably going to have like 5 to 10 ideas for games. And out of all of those ideas, you're going to have criteria for like, which one of these ideas is better for me to work on? And some of those criteria will be like ease of production. Like, which of my ideas is something I'm better at making, right? Like, I personally really like thinky turn-based games, but I know that trying to make one of those on my own would be beyond my abilities because they're so dependent on UI and like data architecture, and those are things that I'm not very strong at. I'm getting better at them, but you've got like, you know, is it easy to make? And then you've got like, do people want it, which is the external thing, which often when you watch like game dev content and you watch developers talk about like talk shop on YouTube, it's all focused on that. It's like, what do people want right now? Which I think you need to think about a little bit, but I think it's much more that there is a market for every type of game, and depending on what type of game you're making, you need to be attentive to what people care about in that game, right? So all the time I get like snarky comments from people. If I put like a little segue in one of my videos where I talk about my game, there'll always be someone snarky saying, oh, pixel platformer. And it's like, okay, I understand people have this attitude to platformers and pixel art platformers. But that's because they're an entry game type, and most of the ones that are made are quite bad, right? Because they're people's learning projects. But I know that there is a type of person that plays Noita and Spelunky and these kind of certain types of platformers. So I'm reasonably confident that if I execute what I'm doing well, then there'll be someone there for it. But you've got the external stuff. You've got the internal stuff of like, how easy is the thing for me to make? You've got the external stuff of like, does anyone want it? And there is an audience for every type of game. It's just a matter of like, how in tune are you with that audience? And do you really understand how high the bar is for a good game in that type, right? Because if you make a Metroidvania and you're competing with Blasphemous and Nine Souls and all of that, you have to look at the quality of those games and go, right, can I do this? Am I an animator? Can I make fighting characters look cool on screen? That's the sort of thing that matters, right? And then you've got, like, which of the ideas is most exciting to you? And that might be driven by like a personal desire to be the first person that does a type of thing. Or it might be like a thematic desire to make a game set in a particular type of world. Like your cyberpunk idea is more exciting to you than your pirates idea or whatever. And all of those things, I feel are kind of like what like make an indie game work. But I've sort of drifted away from the question you asked, which is, how do I know when it's an indie game? Now, for me, that description, you've got the more kind of subcultural way of looking at it, which is like, an indie game is a weird game that wouldn't have got made by a large corporation, right? And there are obviously outliers like Katamari Damacy, right? And if you go back, I don't think it's really the same so much, but if you go back 10, 20 years, like PlayStation was synonymous with stranger games and games from Japan, and like Xbox was synonymous with games trying to be Hollywood and bro shooters and stuff like that. So there's definitely been a time where there was a big space in the AAA games industry for weird games, and I think there still is to a degree. But there's like, indie games are weird, and indie games take risks, and indie games do things that larger, more corporate game studios wouldn't do, right? And there are lots of economic reasons for that, because if you're running a studio with 200 to 500 employees and they have like healthcare and pensions and stuff, you are going to be more creatively conservative. But then just thinking about it as a publishing term, right? An independent game is a game where the creative wing is separate from the money, right? So you get to make what you make, and whether the game is funded or not, the point is that the people with the money don't dictate what the creatives make. But I think the way I see it really is it doesn't become an indie game until it's like a commercial game. And I think the reason I think of it that way is that you say, oh, this game was independently developed. And it's like, well, if it's a hobby project, it's like, well, of course it is, because what else would it be, right? And I think you see a similar phenomena with bands and music, where if you go on TikTok and you look at like your local bands promoting themselves, they'll go, we're this new unsigned artist. And it's like, have you ever been offered a record deal? Or like, we're an independent artist, we don't work with a major label. Has a major label ever approached you? Because there's a big difference between like being independent as a media creator because you've chosen to be, right? You're working at a standard where a record label or a game publisher might approach you and you've gone, no, actually, I can do this on my own. Versus it just being a case of like, well, I'm doing this on my own because it's the only choice. So I guess what I'm trying to get across is that it's totally okay to be a hobbyist, and everyone who is good at any kind of art or design starts as a hobbyist. And I really think the first couple of years of anyone making games, it should be just doing it for fun, doing it to learn, putting the games on a platform like itch.io, and itch.io is so different from Steam because there are so many more people on there who are fellow hobbyist devs who are there to do jams and stuff. The type of feedback you get and the type of interactions you have are like devs to devs. It's very, very different. And I think as soon as you start referring to what you're making as indie games and what you're doing as indie game dev, there is an implication that you are a professional or a semi-professional, and that the things that you are making to sell. And I think that's a good bridge to cross at some point, but it brings with it lots of other stuff, like, are you ready to run a business? Because that's fundamentally what you're doing. A lot of people start setting up their Steam page and they're like, oh, Valve want all these tax documents from me. It's like, yeah, you've decided to become a media company, so you're going to need these sorts of things. Sorry, I'm dipping back into the chat because I haven't been reading it as I've been waffling. Alec Webb, that's good to hear. Tuna Chip TV, I've been working on an RPG, and yeah, data architecture is the biggest obstacle for sure. Absurd amounts of handling data, which I love, but it's not for people who don't enjoy making pipelines. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I don't think we should sneer at things like RPG Maker, because the amount of work that the RPG Maker engine does to make all of those systems and everything easy to just drop your ideas into is amazing. Bunky Wizard said, isn't this a bit contrary to what Chris Zukowski says? He analyzes the trends on Steam and suggests people make more of the underserved genres. I mean, why wouldn't I be contrary to what Chris Zukowski says? I think the thing is, like, I like Chris. I've done collaborations with him. I have affiliate codes for his course. I think what he does is incredibly valuable. And that's why I'm quite happy to support it and collaborate with him, especially because he deals with areas that I'm not interested in dealing with. But I would say that the type of work that Chris does and the type of people it's aimed at is different from who I think this channel is for. I think there is a much larger audience now of people who are making games because they want to go from zero to business as quickly as possible. And they just want to make any kind of game and get it out there and make some money and maybe make another game or whatever, but they're driven primarily by the business side of things and not by like the creative desire to contribute to a medium in a meaningful way. And I'm much more in the later camp. And I don't think those things are necessarily contradictory, because I think I think we meet at the point that you're talking about, which is where Chris says to make games in the underserved genres. I agree with that, right? And I think if there is a Steam meta, then that's where it is. It's not, okay, incrementals are becoming hot now, make an incremental in the next 6 months. I don't think that's how it works. I think one of the best things you can do is find the game that you want to make that is in an area where there are people waiting for that type of game, right? So a thing that's come up, and I will start the game in a minute, but a thing that's come up in the last couple of weeks, I played Storm Settlers, which is like a real-time strategy base builder game, and I played Folk Emerging, which is like a single-player grand strategy game, which is a really cool idea. And those, to me, are both examples of games where it's like, it's very rare to see a good, polished strategy game of that type on a small indie scope that is aimed at one player. So that, to me, is something where it's like, okay, there's probably an audience for this. Just like if you take all of the genres of games that are normally built around being a massive esport like RTS, and you make like a decent single player RTS that's like campaign focused or operates like a roguelike, those are the sorts of things where there's a big opportunity there. The problem comes for most people when they're not willing to take the risk of being like a big fish in a small pond, right? The way that most people operate, and this is particularly true of the type of people I was talking about a minute ago, where they're not necessarily in it because they love games and they want to contribute to the culture by doing something interesting and different. They just want to use games to make some money as quickly as possible. Those type of people tend to be more like rationalistic and numbers focused, and they want to see a chart and they want to like hedge their bets as much as possible. And that means that they tend to become small fish in a big pond, because when you're like waiting for the oracle to tell you what to do, you're also there with like 100 other people waiting for the oracle to tell them what to do, and you get a cargo cult mentality where everyone like rushes to do the same thing and fast follow the same thing. And Chris has talked about this before. I've read Chris's blog where he's talked about the cargo cult mentality. And the thing is, when a type of game starts trending, like Survivors likes, you can fast follow that and make your own version. But the reason why a lot of the fast follows don't do very well is because they're not passion projects and they don't really care about that genre of game. And like, for example, since the channel started in the last 2 years, I've played so many Bullet Heavens where like the first thought I get after a couple of minutes of playing this is, have you ever actually played a Bullet Heaven for more than 2 hours? Because the design here sort of indicates that you don't really understand how they work. And a lot of those games, the core problems in them could have been solved by just going over onto the fan Reddit for Vampire Survivors and like reading a little bit there just to get a sense of the mentality of those players. But a lot of the time when people are trying to like fast follow things and jump into like the overserved niches, they're doing it because they're risk averse and they're scared of taking risks. So they want to do the most data driven thing. And the thing about what you were talking about, Funky, which is like finding an underserved niche, is it's more inherently risky because data can only tell you about the past, right? Data can't tell you about like massive opportunities that exist that no one else is taking because no one else is taking them, right? And this is, again, this kind of comes back to why I like the last full-time job I had was at one of the big mobile studios under Microsoft, and I was there for a year, and it was the best paid job I've ever had. And after a year, there was an opportunity to go from a contract worker to apply for the new job, and I didn't apply. And I've since had headhunters for the same company get in touch with me and say, hey, do you want to come back and do this job? And I didn't apply. And that's because I was bored to tears for a year, because it was just like people reading the tea leaves and deciding what to do based on what competitors were doing and based on tiny KPI reports about, oh, when we did this, this went up 1%. And when we did this, there was no room to make creative risks and to try something bigger. So to kind of link those two conversational topics together, the reason why people like indie games is because we are willing to take risks and we're willing to like try that slightly stranger idea and stuff like that. Right, let's get started on LinkShift. Thanks for sitting through my ramble, but people have good questions, and is this a mouse game? I can't remember. But I mean, the other thing I would say about how to market a game is, I think I would say that there's something about this channel that is perhaps, for want of a better word, a little bit elitist, in the sense that I don't really care about helping everyone who wants to make and release a game make and release a game. Like, I don't have a course to sell. I don't have anything like that. I just want to find cool, interesting games and talk about them. And I'm happy to try and be helpful on the way as we do that. But I'm also not of the reason I'm saying this is because sometimes when you get this like blanket advice that's like, do this, don't do this, and like talking about the Steam meta and everything, I think a lot of the time it gets, that kind of discussion is aimed at the people who are going to be like the largest audience segment, right? So that's your game developers who have been doing it for less than 2 years, who perhaps have one skill and not the other. Like, usually they're programmers and not artists. So people are often going, oh yeah, make this, don't make this. And a lot of that is based on the fact that people know who their audience is and they know which part of the audience is bigger and stuff like that. And I'm a little bit more combative than that. You know, I think, no, actually, you know what? Games should look cool. If you're insistent that you're going to make your game entirely on your own, then learn art, you know? If you don't want to learn art, learn how to collaborate. Rather than, you know, the approach someone else might take, which is like, hi guys, I know you've only been making games for 2 years and you can hardly do anything, so here's the easiest thing for you to make. I'm not really interested in that because we've got enough games already at a kind of cultural level. So I would rather encourage the people that are on the route to making something interesting and cool to double down on that. The squares are yellow, and occasionally it's going to switch between colors. Is that different from the blue one? I think I need to go back and play the tutorial, to be fair. Let's go back. Let's do the tutorial again. Okay. But yeah, I mean, part of the reason why this channel is branded with indie game in the title rather than like game dev or something is that I care about indie games specifically because of the creativity and the space. And like as soon as like a channel or a forum or whatever is dominated by like very newbie stuff of like, what's the thing I can do to go as quickly as possible from not knowing how to code to selling a game? I'm not interested in that because I'm interested in indie games at a cultural level, and I'm interested in games at a cultural level. And that sometimes means you need to be a bit elitist and a bit of a gatekeeper, and you know, some people aren't gonna like that because they just want to be told the kind of quickest route to get what they want. Okay. Let's do the tutorial properly this time, because I kind of remember loosely and intuitively how to play this game, but it's not going to make sense to anyone watching if I don't play through the tutorial. So, in LinkShift, you link nodes to grow their cores big enough for you to collect and score them. Let's go over the basics. You can place a node by using the placement action onto the grid, or hold a node by using the hold action to save it for later. A node has connectors. Align these connectors to form links between nodes. So for the I think Lumines meets checkers isn't a bad reference. Also, shout out Maui in the chat. Maui made the little pixel art thing on our loading screen. That one. Thanks for letting me use that. Little note for the dev, if you're watching now. look at some of these sentences and just try and work out if some of the wording is a little bit superfluous, right? You can is not necessary in this sentence of the tutorial. Just write it as a directive. Place a node by using the placement action. Does it need to be called the placement action, or is it the only thing that we do by clicking? Because if it's the only thing that we currently do by clicking, just say place a node by clicking on the grid. Or hold, you know? Bit of editing of this tutorial will make it go down easier. But yeah, saying you can is like, it's the only thing we're going to do at this moment of time, so just present it as a directive, present it as an instruction. At least one of your current nodes already has a full core, so that's what that is. So as they get connected to more nodes of the same type, the middle kind of lights up and grows. And then when the bar goes across, you get a collection. That sort of advanced before I got to read the last one. A collection sweep will start automatically as soon as one of your nodes has a full core. When the sweep ends, it will collect all nodes of the indicated type. The more nodes you collect, the higher you score. So we're sort of building a grid and then like farming it for resources as the thing passes over. I really like the kind of art style and VFX of this. It's got a very particular sort of strange early 2000s game vibe to it. The collection indicator will show which node types are collected. Where's that? I'm not sure. So this is what we're currently placing. This is the next. I'm not sure what that is. And we can place something in hold. Okay. Let's keep playing until we've reached the next level. And you can push this back so that it takes longer so that you can collect more in one go. There we go. Linking all connectors of a node will make it amplified. Okay, so you should probably prioritize trying to make one node totally linked from all directions because it kind of spreads to all the others that way. Hold up, that's a relic node. This is the most basic relic. It's still very useful. It can link to any node, no matter the color. Use it wisely. Okay. Is that a good word for that? I mean, I feel like relic has such a specific meaning in games at the moment. So I'm not sure if that's going to confuse people. The S effects are there. They are quite quiet compared to the music. I think that's deliberate, though, to try and... But yeah, it does feel like it could do with a little bit more impact when things clear. You know, like... I think they've tried to make the sound effects relaxing because it's supposed to be like a chill flow state game. But I think sometimes that's about EQ rather than volume. You know, like as things blow up, you still want an explosion. You just want an explosion that's like a low rumble with all of the top frequencies cut off or something like that. Yeah, maybe a bit more impact on some of these things. This one is doing something weird. Okay. Right, we'll go back into exploration mode now that I remember how to play. That goes in those directions. We'll do that one there. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the overall creative direction of this feels very consistent, but I also remember games like Rares and Lumines and stuff. I think if you wanted to make it feel more chill than having fewer colors, I think the noise of all the different colors is part of what makes it feel a little bit overwhelming at the moment. I'm not sure about zooming in. I kind of like the focal point being in the middle. I don't like when people stretch visual designs all the way to the edge of the screen, and I think part of it's like your playing context, because on the PC, I'm like sat a foot away from a curved screen. And as soon as you start putting things at the corner of the screen or stretching them out away from the center of the screen, they kind of lose their kind of a sense that there's like a focal point because you're just looking around everywhere. But I'm pretty sure the grid gets bigger as well, so... We're in the kind of standard roguelike mode now. And I think it's going to like gradually get bigger. Has anyone made roguelike Bomberman yet? That needs to be a thing. Legally distinct man with bombs. Am I supposed to pick from these? This is a bit confusing to have this up in real time. Is this a... Oh, these are things I can land on. I see. It's just giving me the key for them. I think a good thing to do would be to like fade these out a little bit, and then when I hover over them, fade them back in so I can see which one they apply to. Because like looking at the icon and then going back and forth to check it's the same. I'm like, my eye's there, now my eye's over there, now my eye's there. I think you could do something so that when we highlight this starts blinking or, you know, lights up in some way so that we can see which one it corresponds to at a glance. I'm playing very badly. Wait. Yeah, trying not to block one color with another color is quite an interesting challenge. I'm glad that I think that there are more colors. I remember there being a pink shape, but they come in quite slowly, which is good because the complexity of like managing the space, even with just blue and yellow, is quite tasking. I'm not sure what the unstable piece is. I mean, it's got that kind of on fire VFX in it, so I don't know if that's... I do like the VFX approach to the background. I do wonder if it could be a bit more like one color at a time kind of thing, just so that the colors that are important in the game kind of pop out more. Because the blue and yellow is important. The color of the power-ups is important. I'm not sure what this is saying. This is like how many times you've collected each of these things, I guess. But I'm not sure why we have an independent thing for this down here when we've got this here as well. It feels a little bit kind of haphazard, some of the arrangement of the UI. Oh, these are the unstable things. I don't know. Let's link them up to things and see if they explode. I can't link them with that though. I mean, that looks unstable, but it's not the same visual effect that we see on that one. I mean, what's happening here is we're identifying quite a few things that are a little bit confusing. But the thing that's interesting is, despite that, it's not actually getting in the way of me playing or enjoying the game, right? The things that are confusing aren't creating a barrier where I cannot just play the game and work out what they mean later, which is quite good. That's a good thing to have happen. It's probably still not ideal, but it, you know, maybe it just points to the fact that they haven't overloaded us with over-explaining things, and it's like we can work out some of this stuff later. Although, you know, just having a hover tooltip on some of these things. What's this? Hover over it. Little thing pops up here, tells us. I do always think those kind of mechanics, well, it's not mechanic really, but those kind of helper features are something you should prioritize even before you've built a tutorial. Right, that makes sense, yeah. So yeah, if that's the case, then so Gastraf said this spawns in if you take no action for too long. So if that's the case, you know, I would grey this out, and then when it's about to spawn, have a little hurry thing come up. But it looks like, yeah, there it is. It's kind of, it's doing that. It kind of looks important before it needs to be important, you know. That state where it starts to like light up with a warning sign and everything. It kind of looks important when it's in this state with the white text. And it's not really. It should probably be greyed out before that point and then gradually light up and become more dangerous looking. Because up until that point, I hadn't hit a point where I was stopping playing for long enough for it to actually become a problem, you know? There's just a few kind of information hierarchy things where we need to look at the state of the game and say, okay, does this need to be in white text full color at the moment? Does this need to be in white text at the moment? Like, lots of little kind of information hierarchy things like that, where generally it's quite good, but I think we could push things down in terms of like how visually important they look in some cases, just to help focus on what's important at that exact moment. Oh, I'm running out of space for my yellow one to go in. Oof. This one is blocked. Is there something I can do to unblock it? There we... Poop. I filled the grid, and I filled it with something that didn't do enough to destroy the blue pieces around it. I'm gonna go once more. I really like this. I liked it the first time I played it. I think the creative direction of it is very good. It's very reminiscent of like sort of early 2000s kind of something you would find on the Dreamcast or the PS2. I think you've got a little bit too much information on screen at all times, and it's not even that the information should go away. It looks too important. So like this, you know, this gain a new relic, grey this out, and then when I hover over that, make that fade in a little bit more, so that the game is kind of helping me to go, okay, this red crown, that's this. Because otherwise I'm looking over there, I'm looking over there. And it's because this is kind of presented in a way that makes it seem like it's always important. And actually, you can do this with like UI in any game really, but if I can see something on the screen and say, are there moments where it's more important to have this information than others, then that's something that should be responsive, right? So this is more important for me to see this and pay attention to it and be able to read it easily when my mouse is hovering over that part, because that's indicating I'm just about to click on this thing and activate it. So I'll do that now. And likewise with the unstable thing, when it's in its lowest state of danger, because we're playing quite fast, this can grey out and just, you know, the UI can tell us, hey, this isn't relevant right now. It just sort of feels a bit like everything is screaming for attention at all times. And these are very small nitpicky things, and that's generally a good sign. Like when people are kind of giving you crit on your work, you know, particularly if it's, you know, players won't know what's wrong with your game that a lot of the time. You have to watch them and sort of understand the problems that they're having by watching them rather than by them explaining it. But other devs will give you slightly different feedback that maybe is a little bit more analytical. And when that feedback starts to become very small nitpicky things, that's generally a very good sign, because no one has like massive structural issues with what you're doing. Okay, this is going to make relic point value go up. So I click that. Okay, so the way that works is the stuff we see up on the top left is basically a pick 3, but they're positioned on the board for us to select from as we place the next part, which is fine, but it's a little bit hard to make that association. And like I say, it just needs to make the highlighting of the text or something happen in conjunction with hovering over that particular thing, because otherwise you're just looking left, looking right, trying to cross-reference the icon with the panel, and it's a little bit fiddly. You know, it would be all right in a turn-based type thing, but even then you would highlight it in a kind of reactive way. But it's real time, and that makes it feel a little bit panicky to be trying to work out which icon does which. Okay. Relic change of appearance. Get this relic more often. Gain a new relic. Can't remember what that relic does, but we'll go for it anyway. Oh, it's the connect to anything. That's what the... Oh, it's a joker. That's why it's got a little... It's not a crown, it's a joker hat. It's a joker because it's wild and it can connect to anything. Got it. Okay, put this one down here. Keep the yellow ones away. And I do feel like I'm getting better at the game as well, which, you know, it kind of sounds a bit obvious, but if you watch people play test your game and it's a skill-based game and they don't seem to get better after failing once, then you might have a problem with it being overly complex or not very intuitive or easy to learn. It's a brainoid. Hello, Brainoid. Happy Thursday. Okay, collecting regular nodes awards more points. Get this node more often. These ones that say get this node more often, at this stage I can't remember what that node does. Oh, is it just telling me blues? Is it increasing the chance of blues? Okay, let's do that. So we're cooking our deck to be weighted towards one color more, which should make it easier to stop the board from getting fully blocked. Sims Plum Bob detected. Yeah, it does look a bit like that. And I'm looking forward to playing Orbital Dynamics again. That was great. Right, gain a new relic. Full connectors gives linked nodes all possible connectors. Oh, that's pretty neat. Yeah, let's go for... Oh, I didn't... Did I click on the right? No, I clicked on the wrong one, I think. I don't know what these ones do. Point cluster, collector score. Okay. They're just extra points. Ah, okay, so the little orange stars are the scores and the green ones are the XP. So whenever we see anything with those orange sparkles coming off, that's just points. There's two directions. There we go. Yeah. I can feel myself fully drifting into the machine zone of playing this without talking now. Right. Node connector, give this node an extra connector. So is that gonna, whichever one I put on, is it gonna upgrade that particular one? Is that how that works? So did I just upgrade pink nodes specifically? I'm not sure. There's interesting choices though in the relic picks. I didn't really get my head around how those relics worked. I understand why they're called relic nodes now though. Because you collect them to go on them and then you like gradually upgrade them. Whoa! just go... At this stage, I need to... It's interesting because it constrains your power-up choices, you know, based on where they spawn on the board and where it's safe for you to go. And in a situation like this where you've been playing it a little bit longer and you filled the board up more, you're going to go, oh, I really want that power-up, but it's in a place where I'm going to wreck the board state if I put the thing down there, which is good. That's a really cool little kind of dilemma to give people to deal with. It feels like it would really take me quite a few more plays of this to get genuinely good at it, but I can feel myself understanding the game more and more. It's just making sure that the game is kind of gentle enough in the offset to get people over that hump. Because there are a few things here that are like conceptually a little bit new and bewildering, and I think what we saw from the tutorial was okay. I mean, it needs to be edited down so that there are fewer words to say the same thing a lot of times in the tutorial. And there were quite a few points in the tutorial where it skipped before I'd read the thing, right? It didn't have a way of like stopping itself progressing without the player's input. And I think those are things to deal with. But I'd also think, you know, a general thing with roguelikes is, you know, I'm always harping on about how it's not a genre. It's not a genre, it's a format of game, right? And one of the benefits of it is you can make the first 5 or 10 minutes of gameplay kind of always be its own tutorial. So if someone comes back to playing, you know, Binding of Isaac or Slay the Spire, and they've played it before, but they haven't played it in 2 years, the game is sort of designed so that the level of complexity for the first few minutes will reteach you the game if you've sort of lapsed and you haven't played it for a while. I feel like maybe this ramps up a little bit quickly in that area, and that's going to mean that it's going to like throw people off a little bit, because there's quite a lot of concepts here that are like, okay, I get relics, I've played games with relics in, but like having to read what they are on here and then capture them on the board and then make sure that as I capture them on the board I don't mess the board up for myself. There's quite a lot to think about there. To make it better for someone who's completely new will also make it better for a player who has come back after not playing it for a few weeks, you know. You don't want to create a situation where older players need to replay a tutorial. You want to kind of balance the game so that there's like a mini onboarding in every run almost. This is kind of why I keep saying with deck builders, it's like the starting deck is supposed to be boring. The starting deck is not supposed to be 8 or 10 totally unique cards. It should have duplicates in. It should be kind of dull. It's getting dicey. It's getting dicey. I think I'm going to die. that one? That one's full, isn't it? Oof. There's a button up there that said end run. Why was that? Where did they just came up for like a second? It was like an end run button. Why? I don't understand that button. Is it because I've reached some sort of score target? Why is there an end run option? Oh, it's because I was locked in. It's giving you like a option to concede. End run sounds a bit neutral. I think if it's like concede means accept loss, right? Or forfeit. I really, really like this. It's definitely got that quality where as soon as I lose a run, I kind of want to play another one. I don't have time to do that now. But that's a very, very good sign. I think there are lots of little UX things and UI things you could do to improve this. I think, you know, when it comes to like structuring the difficulty of a run and how quickly it ramps up, do think back to what I was saying about like, you know, imagine the ideal scenario where loads of people love your game and they play it and then they stop playing it and then they come back to it after a while. How does the game... Like, how does the structure of a run onboard you back into that by kind of keeping things simple for the first 10 minutes or so on? Because those are the areas of kind of accessibility design or like kind of scheduling the content in your game where the things that you do for like the hardcore players who have lapsed and come back, if you do stuff for them, it will help the early game players as well. So those are usually the best... You know, obviously having a good tutorial is worth doing and you should always try and do a good tutorial and like improve the tutorial and all of that kind of stuff. But the other helper things like, you know, hover over tooltips and making sure the information hierarchy makes sense and things aren't in bright white text all the time when we don't need to read them, all of those kind of things. Those kind of things help everyone, regardless of how long they've been playing the game. So it means that they are better uses of your time. I'm just going to switch. This is making my camera lag over to this view mode. Let me just pull the chat box over with us. Defeat the final boss to unlock this section. Okay. I'm not sure what I just clicked on. We're doing an auto battler this time, aren't we? Let's see if I've got any notes on this, because I haven't seen this game before. 1 second. I'm focusing on explaining the game's mechanics as quickly and clearly as possible so that players can start creating different builds from the tools the game provides instead of just seeing a random collection of ships and crew members. Okay, cool. So this is like a space-based auto battler, and thinking of what the dev said, I think the thing about these games and how they work, engine building games in general, which is kind of includes your deck builders, auto battlers and stuff. If you want people to be able to make builds and feel smart as quickly as possible, then I think a lot of that comes down to trying to not give them all the tools at the beginning. Because let's say you have a game where you have, you have ice and fire and poison and all of these different elements. If you reduce how many of those elements are available at the beginning and make the drafting pool smaller, then people are going to be able to see the synergies easier. And then they see the synergies and they start making their fire build. They win the game with their fire build. You unlock some more stuff. And now they've got the ice and it's in there in the drafting pool with everything else. But it's kind of auto balancing the game to make it harder because there's more stuff in the drafting pool. So I think the kind of questions the dev is thinking about will revolve around that kind of stuff of like content unlocking schedules and how much stuff is available to pick from at any given time, because giving people too much options at the start can, well, firstly it takes away the opportunity to reward them by unlocking stuff, but okay. Speed determines firing order. Units with equal speed act in random order. Most actions involving ships, modules, weapons, and crews use drag and drop. Escape can only be used once per run, between volleys, and not during the final battle. Okay. Event that triggers the ability. Next level improvements. Additional information is available by hovering underlined text. Okay, I think this is enough for now. I don't know if this would work for me as a full game tutorial, but let's see. Drop on ship. What does that mean? Does that level up drop on ship? Is that one of these? Oh, okay. Pick it up and yeah. Drag to ship might be better. I wasn't really reading drop as a verb when I saw that there. Right, we're going to upgrade this guy. That's the crash tester. It levels up on death. Interesting. And these don't have any special ability. This is... okay. The tooltip's not going away when we need it to. Fleet bonus. Choose one bonus. Gadget. I want a gadget, please. Each enemy empty flagship tile gains weak armor. Deal 1 damage to the enemy flagship for every 3 max hull your flagship has. On first attack, your units gain 2 damage. Right. Oh, this is my flagship. Right, so these guys are like in a defensive formation in front of this, and this is like my, Magic the Gathering Planeswalker type thing. Okay, cool. I like this design. This is a fun ship. I'm not sure these need to be this high up. Again, focal point, middle of the screen, right? This big kind of third in the middle. I think when something is important, put it at the top of there, or the side of there, or the middle of there, the center of the screen. This makes them feel like they're kind of optional when we put things along the top like that. It's not really a location for, here's the next thing you need to do. The bar at the top of the screen is more for like things that are really contextual, like, oh, I need to go and open this menu right now or whatever. Let's go to the crew pub. I don't know what that does. Oh, we get some crew. Okay. Operator. Increases the speed and damage. Adds a sector entry ability. This ship gains 2 speed for each crewed ship. This gains dodge if it does a kill. Grants the ship 1 damage. This recycles the ship and gives you dollars when the ship dies. This is cool. Okay, so the ship on the right, we're going to just try and make it more dangerous. And I can afford another one, so I'm going to just make this little ship on the right have both of the sort of damage upgrades. And then we're going to go towards the unknown signal. Okay, who's this guy? Vanguard. Moves to free tile on the left or right. What are these? Golden asteroids. Provides money. Okay. this is pretty cool. We're getting loads of things that are kind of standard auto battler things. You know, like you're gradually progressing, you're getting new units, or you're dropping things on the units to level them up. They come back after a combat, which is how auto battlers generally work. And basically, I think the health of your flagship is the thing that actually matters from round to round. And all of this is like kind of genre convention for an auto battler. But the way every little thing works is kind of slightly different, and that's pretty cool. It means there's enough here for people that play these games regularly to kind of latch onto and understand. But everything has got its own little way of working to learn. And I think you might be onto something there, because I think people that play these types of games, that's what they want. They want to learn the new system. They want to master a system. And if it's too similar to one they already know, then there's nothing there to learn. You know? Right. That's the end of the run. We died. So I've played a few of these that have been based on Dota Underlords or the Hearthstone one, and sometimes it's just like, well, what differentiates this from the bigger game that this is based on? This feels very unique. And there's lots of elements that just fit with what people expect from the genre, but they're executed in a slightly different way. Yeah, I think having those tooltips that open and don't go away unless you manually click them is incredibly clunky. And just like thinking about where things are positioned on the screen. So like the next options should probably be up here rather than right at the top. I think the clicking and dragging things to upgrade the ships as well. I think putting a little bit of time to make that kind of sound and feel good, because it's this, you know, this is supposed to be a big cool thing. This is a big reward that I've got here, you know. That should have a bit more like clunky, crunchy, satisfying feel to it. Let's see what integration does. Oh, we stole an enemy ship. That's cool. I can change the formation as well, can't I? So let's have these guys at the side. Anything I can do to make this a little bit tougher? Prism entity. One in everything. Also, you've got color coding here, right? With speed, hull, damage. This information is presented in a different order here to here. And also, the iconography, the color coding doesn't copy across. So here we've got red, yellow, white. And here we've got white, yellow, red, but it's in a different order. And it's not actually color coded. So like try and use your color coding consistently. I would err towards making the icon red, yellow, and white, and then keeping all the text white. Because the problem with having this number red is we're so used to associating the red and yellow numbers with it indicating a problem, and actually it's not. It's just that it's the red resource or the yellow resource. So make the icons the correct color, then make these. I understand why you're doing it, because you want this screen to be like a sort of LCD screen that only has one color, but it's very confusing to establish a color code somewhere and then not use it consistently. Who have we got over here? Let's make one of these faster. And I'll put a crew over here without thinking too hard about it. And we'll go to the asteroid belt. But yeah, this already feels like a pretty neat little game from a gameplay point of view. There's just lots of like UX things that could be improved, I think. And those things matter a lot in this type of game because it's not an action game. Speed up the combat a bit. Okay. How are we doing here? What's this? Oh, I need to reposition. That's what I need to do. Okay, put this asteroid in the... I can't move the asteroids. Okay, they're just like a shield, but I can't move them because why would I be able to? Okay, we're going to try one more run. So yeah, we're gradually unlocking some stuff like I talked about at the beginning. You know, we do this stuff to reward the player, but we also do it to save them from themselves so that they don't get access to too many toys early on and get confused. Okay, you're going to go over there. Let's just try that. I like the different faction designs as well. You're getting quite a lot of flavor out of very simple pixel art with the style of these different ships. Let's get money this time. Because being able to buy everyone in the crew pub seems like the best stat boost across the board. Who's this? A fanatic. Improve the hull. At volley start, sacrifices the ship, transferring the hull to repair the flagship. That's interesting. Okay, let's do that. Let's get one of those guys because that sounds interesting. Put them there. And so this one is always going to get removed to heal this. And then these other guys are going to be there to deal damage. So put pilot on there. Operator on that one. And damage -2 on death provides $7. So I can put them on the fanatic ship. And hopefully we're going to get $7 every time that triggers as well. Hey, Doppel. Yeah, big old flashbang. So I just wanted to check whether I got my $7 then. Whoa! I'm not sure what happened then, but it was kind of satisfying. Okay. We'll level up this one that's had our pilot added. Let's go to the crew pub. We don't need repairs right now. We don't want another fanatic. Okay, we're going to put a mechanic on this smaller ship. And put a pilot on our... I hadn't really put any crew on the flagship yet. Let's go to the Bombard Cartel. I think this is like an elite combat, which is why it's got the red thing and it's got like a named enemy. Let's just try that. Oof. Guys. You really do be blasting me. Right, hopefully I'm going to beat them on speed this time and get to them before they get to me. Oh. There we go. Yeah, like having the enemy flagship health down here when it's something that's always at that specific point in the screen. Those are the kind of things you want to think about with the UI design. So if this bar always corresponds to something here, then it may as well be there. But this is the problem with doing this kind of design where you're trying to like make things feel like a you know, skeuomorphic interface. You end up making these decisions based on making this feel like a realistic device rather than doing what the player would need. Don't know what that was. It was a sector entry. Deal 1 damage to the enemy flagship for every 3 max hull your flagship has. Okay, cool. Let's go to the ship market and see if we can get some extra hull. Oh, okay, that's what these are. Okay, these are just new. Supervisor, passive, has 4 crew slots, doubles all stats and effects gained from crew. That's quite good. Edge, gains 1 when attacked. These all cost 20, so I can get 2 new ships. Deploys 1 drone if there is free space. That's cool as well. So I can put that next to this one, because this sacrifices itself, right? So I'm going to put this, and then I'm going to get the supervisor and put that down here. And now we've only got 2 hard guys. Now, what's hopefully going to happen is... Oh, I can move this around as well. I didn't realize I had different guns on the flagship. There's so many little components to play with in this, which... Again, it's like, this is exactly what I want from an auto battler. Loads of little things to upgrade. Distinctions between types of components. So we've got like ships versus guns versus crew. Lots of little components to play with. None of them is super complex in its own right. And the game's giving us lots to think about and lots of opportunities to like weigh up which is better to put where. But the actual kind of interaction of how I put them together is very, very simple. That's exactly what I want from this type of game. Passive. If a unit has no alloys in its row and column, it deals double damage. I don't think that's very helpful for what I've got. Gain 2 credits for each surviving crew member on victory. Each enemy flagship tile gains weak armor. Okay, let's go for that. That seems helpful. So at the end of each combat, we're going to get money for how many crew members have survived. Oh, this is a motley crew. Civilian ship provides $5 if it wins. Okay, so you should go down there, really. There we go. Oh. Got flashbanged again. I really like this. I'm going to move on to the next game rather than start a new run. I love the gameplay of this. I think there are a few UI things I've talked about. I'm not going to go over them again because I've repeated them a few times already. But one thing to note that it doesn't feel super obvious when you're getting close to death. And again, I think that's really just a case of like your flagship health is over on a place that is completely divorcing it from what it corresponds to in the game, you know? So I think although a lot of effort and time is obviously, I think, into this kind of layout of the screen and this kind of paneling, I think you do need to think a little bit more about how these things correspond to things in the game mode. Even just like nudging the enemy flagship bar up so it's kind of connected here, or you could take them and indent them, you know, like we take your flagship bar and it's kind of like coming out and the plastic goes along here and it's here and then the enemy one is here, just so that it's a little bit more associated with the ship that it's related to, because otherwise it just feels like you've arbitrarily put things around the edge because you want it to feel like a ship console, which is a great kind of creative way of approaching a UI, but it's not always the best way of organizing the information. Right. Cosmic Flesh, last game of the day. I think this is pretty much a sort of, well, let's see what it's been. Let's see what it says it is. Let's go to the store page for it. Action roguelike shooter. It's got kind of a funky art style. We got some weird aliens in this one. I think that's part of what made it stand out to me. When I see a screenshot like this, I see the pick 3. I kind of always wonder whether it's gonna err on the side of being a bit of an active aiming game or a bit more chill, because the whole point of like bullet heaven games is that they're all about the like moving around in space, and I think when they lean too hard towards being a twin stick shooter, you end up asking a little bit too much of people's attention span for those long sessions. Been playing a lot of Ball X Pit, and that balances those things quite well. We've got a Lockwing, health 3, speed 3. We've got a Sunmarine, health 4, speed 2. I'm going to go with the Sunmarine. I'm going to go with the slow thing first to see how slow is in this game. Turn the ship. We do LT to move the ship, and we do RT to use the special power. And we stop shooting when we're not moving, which already feels like it could be an interesting dynamic, actually. So I'm just using the 2 shoulder buttons. I've got a special power on my right thing. And then I shoot when I'm not moving. We're being raided. Being raided by... I don't know. I'm being raided by aliens. I don't know about you guys. Extra damage to the laser cutter. That's my special... Yeah, the movement feels pretty great. I'm not super sold on the art, but it's kind of passable. I think the design of the aliens is a lot stronger than the design of the ships. You know, if I was playing this to be super... Like, I've got a cool spaceship. The ships feel kind of goofy. I think the aliens make up for it. Omni-Trump turret. Yeah, all of the menus have this thing where you move the cursor, and then when you stop moving the cursor, it goes away. And I don't know why you've done that. It feels like a bug. It might just be an issue I'm having with my controller, but I haven't had it with any other games, so... Just a wee raid. Oof. Okay. Quite unforgiving there. Yeah, they take 30 off your health? What's the point in having a health bar of 90 if the most, like, basic thing in the game takes 30 off of it? Oh, that beam is my automatic beam that I just unlocked. So the big double beam is one I'm doing manually myself, and the other one is a passive upgrade I just got. Yeah, the health feels really stingy. It's like you've given us a big granular health bar with increments of 10 in, but it actually feels more like I'm working with Zelda hearts. Right, I'm going to get the auto repair. That seems helpful. Slightly wigged out there and bumped into him. I think you need a lot more granularity with the health. I would make it so that bumping into things is quite forgiving. Like if you fly into the enemies, you lose like 1 health, but if you get hit by a projectile, then it's way worse, you know? If you like having the game at this current difficulty where it only takes a couple of times being hit to die, that's fine, but I would, if you're going to do that, I would theme the health bar as like 5 hits or something, or like 5 little shields or hearts, because it feels like that. And I think when you're using a health bar with double or triple digits, it sort of infers that it's going to be more about like avoiding chip damage. It doesn't seem to be anything in this game that is chip damage. It's like the simplest things take off a ninth of your health in one touch. Definitely got the one more try thing, though. I would seriously consider investing some time in making the ships look cooler, though. I kind of like the fact that they're kind of chibi. It's not the shape design of the ship so much, it's the way that the art is rendered. This is to do with like the texturing and stuff. The aliens work really well for me, but they're organic, right? Whereas I think there's something to do with the shading on the ship. Just the art style feels a little bit childish, and the ship is, you know, the cool aspirational thing. It's a fine line to walk to try and make art assets that look kind of cute and goofy, but also don't look childish. And I would say that I think it's more the gradienting and stuff on this doesn't feel particularly cool. What makes me wonder if the ship and the aliens have even come from the same artist. Well, I think having the ship be, like, round makes sense when we've got, like, this perfect turning circle. But I think there's a way to do a chibi round ship that just looks a little bit more cool and aspirational. And the main problem for me is, like, the way that the shading is done on it looks kind of particularly goofy and like something I would mock up in a PowerPoint or something. Bit clip arty, you know. The quality of the aliens is much higher than that. Look at these guys. Yeah. Elden Ring MF. Definitely Moorish, though. Good sign. Piercing bolt launches an infinitely piercing projectile straight ahead. Yeah, there's nothing about the lasers that doesn't say, like, cool game for grown-ups to me. Literally just the ship design. Let me just... Some chibi spaceships. You know, you can do the dimensions, but I think... So much slop. I mean, the game's not pixel art, is it? Just trying to find a reference point. Most of these aren't chibi. Where we completely broken now. Like, this is cool, right? That is a chibi proportion ship that looks cool. That fighting those aliens, great. Game's firing on all cylinders. Mini shoot. It's very cute. Yeah, see, this is kind of like a more soft, childlike art style, but the whole game is consistent with it. It all looks like that. You know? They can be short and still pointy, yeah. The thing is here, I think there's something about the aliens that are a little bit scary and edgy, and it feels like we need to have something that lives up to that. And to be fair, I did pick the slow ship, which is themed to be a bit clunkier looking, but I don't know. It's that perfectly round sort of submarine front as well. Core mechanics are great though. It's very sort of... I'm trying to stop saying addictive about games because it's annoying. Compelling is my favourite word for that. I really dislike the use of the term addictive in games because it's like, addiction is bad, and addiction isn't just like, oh, I did this thing for 5 minutes and now I wanted to do it for 5 more minutes. So it bothers me from a social point of view. And then also, like, people say addicting. I don't know if it's mainly an American thing, but people say addicting, and it's like, it's not a word. Like, why are you saying that? There is a word, addictive, which means exactly the same thing, and you've just made up another word. Gripping! Yeah. So, I don't know. I think compelling is a good word. Gripping, moreish. There are all of these words for what we use addictive for. And I think when people talk about video games being addictive, they're showing a lack of sensitivity about what addiction is and looks like and does. It's definitely not something that anyone should be aspiring to produce in anyone. On one hand, I think they've done the right thing in the sense that, you know, the focus is on the enemies looking cool because they're the things that we actually look at. But I do feel like the ship design is just not at the same standard of quality as the rest of the game. And I know that's quite cosmetic. And I think having a round chibi ship makes sense because of how things move. But I think there's a way of doing a round chibi ship that also makes it look like a cool thing. And this is not. It's a little bit flash game, and the problem is you've pushed the standard of your monsters up above that bar, And now the flash gameness of the ship is becoming a problem. Oof, crashed into a thing. Right, let's go back and pick a different ship. The standard rockets are an auto attack. It's only the big laser special that's not an auto attack. Okay. Let's do the lock wing, which I guess is intended to be the first thing. This ship looks a bit nicer. Okay, special power rockets. Yeah, I think it was just the design of the last ship. This is fine. Was that, like, perfectly round bubble on the front of the last one that made it look really fugly, I think. Yeah, I like the test area. It's a good feature. I think maybe you do want to lock the ships, though, and have them earned. Because if you let people pick from 4 characters or builds or ships or whatever at the start of your game, you're taking away a reward, right? And maybe this is because we're playing a playtest and not the full game, but and they want to test more stuff. You're taking away a potential reward, but you're also making it so that different players get a different first experience, and then it makes it harder to diagnose if there's a problem. You know? You want people to generally have the same experience in the first 10 minutes, maybe even hour of your game. Depending on what sort of game it is. Not put too much optionality at the start, because people might just pick something that doesn't work for them and then they're kind of screwed. I think the only time it pays to have optionality right at the start is when you're dealing in like very clear tropes. You know? Like if you've made Skyrim, which hopefully you haven't, but if you have, if you've made a big fantasy game and people are going to want to pick between a wizard and a rogue and stuff, but you need to have the mechanics to match the tropes. So if you let me pick a rogue and then there's no stealth mechanic, then I'm going to be like annoyed. But most situations it's usually, I mean that's one of the reasons why Elder Scroll games, as they got more console oriented and more sort of mid-core-y, they started erring towards the side of having less character creation and more that you just sort of make some options about your loadout in the first half hour that build your character, you know? Because people don't really know what ship or vehicle or character class they want at the start of a game, unless your game adheres very, very closely to certain types of conventions and then delivers on them. How am I down to 20 health already? I've barely perceived having been hit. Yeah, I would like a little bit more granularity with the damage. I think when there's a big flaming projectile coming towards you from something, or like a big scary enemy, those are things that should take 10 damage. But stuff like these guys bumping into you and biting you, that should be like 2 damage. Bumping into an asteroid shouldn't be as much damage as like an enemy trying to hurt you. Just a little bit more granularity with what all of these, because it will make the game easier for new players and more likely to stick around, but also as you learn more about what does more damage, that will become like a strategic layer of like, oh, is it better to dodge towards this hazard or towards this hazard, you know? It's kind of like when you're playing a tower defense game and you know that that big guy is going to take off more of your base's health if you let him through. So it's like, oh, now I need to panic build to stop the big guy. If everything does the same damage and it's all kind of flat, there's less interesting decisions to make about prioritization, I guess is the way I'm thinking about it here. So partly it's a knee-jerk response to just how easy it is to die in this game. Partly it's because I find the UX of having a health bar of you know, 80, which is actually effectively just 8 hits. I find that a little bit annoying and misleading. But I think the gameplay will be more interesting if there's more variation in how much damage things do. And you'd be a little bit more liberal with allowing the player to get hit by these smaller things or bump into smaller things. Yeah, the enemies do need to do something when they die, don't they? Very uneven. It's the problem with when you get like certain bits of your game looking or feeling really good. It raises the expectations of how everything in the game is going to be, and I think yeah, the just disappearing enemies is a, even if they sort of like shuddered and faded, I don't think there needs to be a new art asset like a giblets or a VFX or anything. It could even just like having them fade out over half a second while they shake or something, or have them flash when they take damage and then fade. That something is missing from there, and it's, yes. It does feel a little bit like the game is too far on to not have that. I mean, if I'm making an action game and things are getting killed in that action game, I'm going to be programming that to look cool just for fun. You know? Not the thing. It's not the sort of thing I need to sit down and put into Trello to be like, oh, make it look cool when things explode. It's like, no, making things look cool when they explode is fun to do, and it's essential to the game. So it's like the sort of thing that I would just do for fun. It's kind of weird to see games where enemies just disappear like that. I don't think it needs to be super distracting. I like how visually clear this game is. I can sort of like half unfocus my eyes and still see the whole game very, very clearly. I think it's got quite good visual design from that perspective. Like it doesn't get overcrowded with loads of explosions going off that don't mean anything or whatever. But yeah, a little bit of sauce when these guys die just to make it more satisfying. Again, you made them organic, so you need to keep with that theme. And it's called Cosmic Flesh as well. You've got like a visceral, sort of almost Cronenbergian game title. See, I'd be tempted to give the biting enemies a drain. Like the enemies that look like a mouth that's going to bite you, when they collide with you, you know, if they collide with you for like a whole second, they take 10 health off. But it's like almost like a drill action rather than bam, instant 10. These are the kind of design decisions where it's really hard to tell whether they've been made because, you know, the dev just wants the game to be really hard and you die in 10 hits. In which case, make it Zelda Hearts, don't make it a health bar. Some of it kind of feels a little bit... I don't know. There's lots of little situations like that where it's like, I can see a better way of doing this. I can see a better way of doing this that would have taken you like an hour, you know? It's just very uneven. So it feels very, very good in some ways, and it feels like some care and attention's been put into it. And then there's just certain things like the way health works, the lack of enemy death animations. There's lots of little things that feel a little bit cheap or lazy. And it's weird because the rest of the game doesn't feel like that. So I don't know if it's just a... Maybe this is one of those cases of like this was a learning project and it just happens to look a little bit nicer and more polished than most people's learning projects, and that's why I'm kind of judging it by quite a high standard. But you know, this is a genre of game where it's like, what are you trying to do with this? Because Vampire Survivors is a $5 game with an incredibly large amount of content in. This kind of has its own thing going for it. I like that it's sort of mostly a passive bullet heaven, but we've got a little bit more, you know, watching out for danger and stuff. But these games where you pick an upgrade and you pick from 3, they are fundamentally engine builders, and that means that the shelf life of this game depends on how varied this stuff is here and how interestingly it interacts with each other. And this is kind of what I was saying at the beginning about, you know, people working in genres because they're popular or because they think they'll be easy to make, but not like having a good idea of what makes that genre tick, because it's very easy to play Vampire Survivors for like 10 minutes or even an hour and not understand that the thing that keeps you playing Vampire Survivors is the fact that your build each run feels... The run identity between runs when you pick a different set of weapons feels really, really different. And that's without having any active firing abilities. You know? I might just play Vampire Survivors for a run after this as a bit of a palate cleanser, because I haven't played it for a while. But like the different identity of run that comes out from picking different upgrades as you advance through and pick one of 3 things is really, really broad and really diverse. I'm not quite feeling that here. And again, nearly every time I get sent a game in this vein, it has that same problem. Where it just doesn't do enough to kind of convince me that there's going to be a lot of weapons or a lot of power-ups or a lot of passives. Overdrive. What's the overdrive power? Oh, that's cool. We're a gyoza dumpling this time. And we shoot out little things all over the place. This is quite a fast one. Easy to crash. I'm going to crash you. Probably going to die from crashing. I mean, I think you want the enemy movement to be somewhat predictable, especially seeing as the ship is a little bit wiggly. I think all of the actual action mechanics in this feel fine to me. Like, I like piloting the ship. I like the way that the guns work. Like, the level of predictability of things in terms of how they're going to behave physically is fine. But I just don't like the damage model. I think it's too punishing. And it feels like someone saw the wave of bullet heaven games and thought, oh yeah, I understand what that is. That's an arcade game. You know, you play it for 5 minutes and then something kills you, and it's like, that's not really what those games are. They're farming games. They're about like farming resources and building an engine. And I'm not saying this because like everyone needs to make exactly that, but that is sort of how the genre works. And I maybe not seeing enough to convince me that the engine building part of this game has enough variety in it, and it's just a little bit too geared around being really punishing to your health and not about avoiding chip damage, you know. I'm going to put Vampire Survivors on for one run because I need a palate cleanser. It's got an update. Let's do one run of Vampire Survivors. Or I get on with all of my various admin things I need to do this afternoon. Flashing lights warning. Please don't watch this stream if you cannot see flashing lights, or watch it and then when the flashing lights come on, close your eyes. Who are we going to be? So I haven't even... so many that I haven't got. Who's this guy? Gains 1% curse every level. So I've never used Chula Ray. It's how long it's been since I played it. We could do random. That's a Kinder Surprise egg. Chances is luck every 30 seconds or when picking up a re-rollo. Vampire Survivors is wonderful. You know, I was playing that Relic Abyss recently, which is a very beautifully built game, but it was like the way they've tried to advance on this formula is to like make it all nice animations and stuff, and the problem that introduces is then you can't do the content variety, which is what makes the game good. Okay, stage selection. We're just going to do a boring basic stage. We'll do the library. Okay. Thanks, John. Randomazo. I don't remember what this is. Oh, okay, so we pick one of these and it boosts. Okay, so he just drops stuff down on their heads randomly. I'm going to go for a cross because that attacks an enemy near us. Because the crystals that are falling down are going to go all over the place, so we probably need something nearer to us. And the sparrow. And I don't really remember how the weapons synergize. So there are like weapons where you collect a set of two specific weapons, and then they go together and they form a synergy. I don't remember how we get to it. Oh. I put it in fast mode. What happened? Oh, they've got a... Is that a new thing? I don't remember there being a speed up shortcut. So, the thing that this game does so well, that so many of the games that have come since don't, is that you don't have anything that you need to aim, right? I mean, occasionally you do, but it's more like, oh, this thing leaves a trail behind you. Okay, so that evolves with the blue laser thing, so I'm going to get that. But the weapons are so varied in terms of what they do and how they move out of your character that it kind of changes the way you need to move the character around in the space. And that only happens because, you know, it's got like a chain of dependencies in the project. You make something with an incredibly simple art style where it's very easy to make lots and lots of content, like lots of weapons, lots of enemies. And then that allows you to have like this very deep engine building where you're collecting and combining things. And if you take this genre and you're like, well, the way I'm going to innovate on this genre is I'm going to make the animations better. It's like, well, you've broken that whole chain of like production dependencies that leads to Vampire Survivors. And then I've been playing Ball X Pit recently, which I feel like is a very good evolution of this, which does have aiming. But I think the fact in Ball X Pit, you're like shooting up the screen, almost like a breakout game. And it's less about can you hit the specific enemies, and it's more about can you bounce the ball in such a way that it hits as many enemies as possible, which is very, very satisfying. And because there are so many balls all of the time, and a lot of the time they're just bouncing around, it's like, okay, it's presented as being attacking enemies, but it's basically just a pachinko where everything is moving around. You know? We're doing our next episode of One More Run on Ball X Pit. I might play a run of Ball X Pit after this. You can really tell that I have paperwork to do today, because I'm just like, hey, let's just extend the stream and play 10 different games. Tirijisu revives once with... That evolves with my lasers. I don't remember how any of the evolutions work. There's so much, like, esoteric combinations of stuff. But I will just keep... You see I've got one slot left in my active weapons. Yeah, Ball X Pit is... Well, I'll wait to see what the other hosts say about it, I guess. I'd already played it for like a month before we picked it. So I haven't actually played it as much since they've been playing it. So it's going to be interesting to see what they say about it. Ball X Pit is incredibly grindy. One thing that I really like about it, which feels like a... It does feel like an evolution of this in the sense that they're both games that have loads and loads of content and try and do quite a lot with, like, content variety. I don't know how far you got into it, Jim, but some of the characters you unlock are more or less active than others. And some are really less active. There's, like, characters that just play the game for you. And some of them are, like... You maybe have to care a little bit more about aiming than others. But there's... Oh, unlucky. What does that do? Oh, it's just going to get swarmed. You know, there are some enemies, some characters where it's just like, oh, you don't get any of the smaller balls, so you have to aim a lot more now because your shots count more. Let's get luckier. I don't remember what the luck mechanic does. Yeah, we can speed the game up. I'm pretty sure that's a new feature. Just play at 3 times speed. Oh yeah, the turn-based guy. I literally just got them. But that's the thing, isn't it? If you make a game that's relatively... Like, the base of the game is relatively simple, but allows for so much variation. And then you can do stuff like that. Like the unlock that Robobin just mentioned, where you can do, like, something where someone's been playing the game for, like, 10 hours, and then they unlock this thing, and it's just like, what? Like, you know, characters that are just completely different modes of the game, because they change how something works so much. Yeah, if I were to make one of these, I think it would be... You're a farmer. The enemies are aliens. And... You basically use old XCOM graphics. Like XCOM meets Redneck Rampage meets Vampire Survivors. And you'd have a bunch of alien stuff. And as you progress through the game, maybe you'd unlock like Men in Black agents and Duke Nukem characters and stuff like that. Oh, what's happening here? We've got some tougher stuff coming in. I'm going to slow it back down. And maybe you'd also have to do the farming. Like, you'd have to actually go around harvesting your crops as you did the Vampire Survivors bit. And that would tie the farming to the alien defense thing. Give me that good stuff. The little blue thing picks everything up for you. I'm trying to keep my last weapon slot open because I don't know what I might be able to get after I get my evolution, and that will make another free weapon slot as well. Look at these bogies. Look at these big green bogies. These Elden Ring MFs. Oh yeah, I haven't played Atomic Ops. I would like to play that. I think it was suggested on One More Run the other week, actually. Yeah, because the thing about auto battlers is very often framed as like you are playing a board game against an opponent type situation, and that's because a lot of the single player auto battlers are basing themselves off of the multiplayer ones. But they don't have to be that way, right? You don't have to have an opponent army that has the same stuff as you or whatever for an auto battler to work. It could be completely asymmetrical, which is like, you know, it's what stuff like Slay the Spire did different from analog deck builders. Was, okay, we don't actually need the enemy to be another player analog with cards. I haven't tried Warhammer yet, no. The Deep Rock one's supposed to be pretty decent as well. Turbo mode. Union of Fiera did Tufelo and ate the sparrow. Scales with revivals. Way. So the red and blue diagonal things just turned into that crazy disco thing. Whoa, 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 whoa. See, look, chip damage. Isn't it nice to not take 10 health every time something hits you? I understand it's a different game, but I think there's a particular vibe that comes from, like, hit 10 times and you're dead versus having everything based on avoiding small amounts of chip damage. And again, that last game just felt a little bit like something I've experienced so much in the last 2 years, which is one of these games based on one of these games made by someone that doesn't actually play these games. Ooh, anything related to anything we've got? No. I can't remember what the Santa Water and the Orb level up into. Magic Wand synergizes with that red book thing, so I'm just picking the things that have the obvious evos at the moment. So many levels. So Robin, in terms of... Yeah, I mean, when you're very early in Vampire Survivors, it doesn't show you the evos, which kind of means it hides some of its secret source, which maybe if you're making a new one, you need to make some of that a bit more obvious early on. Otherwise, people just think, well, this doesn't have much in it. Evolved sands of water damaging zones follow you and grow when they move. Okay, cool. There's some red books that way, just in the level as well, by the looks of things. Oh, I forgot about the 2 rings. There's a silver ring and a gold ring that do something when you pick them both up. We're doing the big zap. Yeah, I love the combos in Borlex Pit. I do like how they're guessable. Like occasionally it's surprising, but usually you get like there's so many of them as well, the evolution combos. I do think most games benefit from having like a mix of... Oh, we died. I've got a revive, I'll use it. Alright, we go back the other way and get the other ring. Well, another revive. What is on me? Oh, it's those guys. Oh, yeah, because I picked up the ring. I remember how that works. You get bullied by these big invincible guys the whole time you've got the silver ring or the gold ring. They just follow you around. Right. Run away from the big guys. Maybe I need to put it back on slow mode for a minute. To have a chance to get to the other ring. Like, I think even if you don't understand like the synergy element, the kind of engine building synergy element of these games, it's very easy to look at this and Borlex Pit and go, okay, what these games need is a billion things exploding on screen. And again, I get sent so many of these games where it just feels like people didn't get the basic memo about what the type of game they're making is fundamentally about. And again, I think it is because we have the percentage of people who are making games as a genuine hobbyist, where they're just like, I love this type of game and I want to make my own version of it and innovate on it and like contribute to my gaming subculture, the percentage of people releasing games who fit into that category seems to have shrunk. And the percentage of people who are just like, I just want to make a game because someone told me it would earn me some passive income or something, has grown proportionally larger. And that means that there are just lots and lots of games where you play them and you're just like, did the person who designed this game make this type of game because they love this type of game? I mean, I don't think I ever got to the end of Diablo 4. I think the last one I played was 3, so it's probably not a Joeism, but yeah. I think you often get people that don't really understand the kind of hardcore casual spectrum, and they try to make a game in a very casual, chilled out genre like a Bullet Heaven or an Incremental, and then they're like, is that it? Does it, what if I add this more active thing in? And it's like they just, again, because they're working in a space that they don't personally understand, or... And I think that's very, very common, particularly with solo developers, because as someone who is like a programmer, you probably like difficult things. You probably have a degree of masochism about you, which means that your gaming tastes are probably more likely to be on the side of, you know, Dark Souls or Civilization than they are going to be on the side of like Cookie Clicker or like... I don't know, just something more brainless. And so you end up kind of like spoiling things by trying to make them active in the wrong directions, you know? A little skull on me. A little crown on me. Delicious floor chicken. I might just, whenever there's a stream like this where I've got a little bit of time after the normal stream, if someone sends me a game in a genre that I feel doesn't live up to the best in class, I'm just going to play the best in class for half an hour. As a palate cleanser. I walked past it. I walked past the ring. That's very easy to do when you zone out too far. You have the very small active thing of like, oh, go and find this thing on the map, and then you get to it and you walk all the way past it because you have entered the zone out zone. That makes sense, Nate. Yeah. There's a really good diagram of that in Tyne and Sylvester's book of like, it's like a timeline and it's showing sort of decisions and decision intensity. And like when you're playing, I think he uses Counter-Strike as an example. It's like when you're playing Counter-Strike, you know, you're deciding where to move and shoot, and you have like these short moments of very high intensity decisions, which we would call reactions, right? But they are very fast decisions. And then when you're dead and you're out and you're observing, you're still making decisions, but you're making them at a much lower intensity. So same if you've ever played a MOBA, you're going to have moments where you're out and you're just watching the game for 2 or 3 minutes. And those are important because you're still kind of watching it and planning what to do next. And Oh yeah, I need the clock and the lancet. That's what you need to combine with those. I'm just going to keep following the map points and hope that they give me good stuff. See you later, KP. Have a good meeting. Channels dark powers to curse the bearer. I'm not sure if I want to be cursed. I don't remember what it means. Turtle time. Okay, the gold ring is leveling up the enemies, so maybe I just need to lay off upgrading that for a little while. Even if it's kind of funny. It's going to force me to upgrade the cursed ring because I picked up the thing. Munching through all my revives now. I don't know how I got so many revives. I mean, I just got a bunch in one go, so... Should have had some chicken then. Who's making robot noises at me? Get some chicken. Chicken every time for the foreseeable future. How many revives do I have? I think we won. I found 50 vacuums. I evolved the cross. Right. Let's do one ball X pit. Because, like, that game grabbed me and I played it for a long time when it came out. And then when I picked up Ball X Pit recently, it felt like the first game in that design space that really grabbed me properly since Vampire Survivors. And I think it's that case of just, like, it does all of this kind of structurally very similar stuff, but with like core gameplay that gives you something different to learn. And that's kind of what I was saying about the auto battler earlier, where it was like you know, like lots of the game structure is what I expect from an auto battler, but the way that the actual combat and the upgrading plays out it was different. Okay, so if you haven't played Ball X Pit, it has like a meta game of building this town. And the town has a little pinball in it. Mine is quite advanced now, so I get to do a little ping. And this is the really hooky thing is that you do this and then you do a run, and then when you come back here you get to do this again, and it's like, oh, I may as well just keep playing forever. Oof. Okay. Let's do one run of this, and then I should do important life things. So the thing with this one is some of the characters you unlock. Yeah, I don't mind playing the town on here, but I think on Switch it would just be too visually small for me. Some of the characters you unlock, just like, oh, okay, this one plays the game entirely on his own. Balls are shot by 2 falcons flying on the sides of the screen. That's fun. Who's on a low level? Let's level someone up. I think the falconer is the lowest level character I've got. And then I've got an upgrade that lets you pick 2 characters and it combines their abilities. So we'll go with the falconer and the physicist. You can tell I didn't really want to use the autoplay character because he's still level 1. Okay, yeah. This guy has drastically less health, but he doesn't get attacked by characters that are near him. Oh, I haven't played this one at all. So I took a gap after I did my last big binge of this, and there's like whole sections I haven't looked at. What this does as well is there's levels that you have to replay a bunch of times to like level characters up and do grindy stuff. And they all have a slight twist, but it's very much just like, oh, on this level the enemies drop a poison thing on the ground or whatever. This upgrade lets you charm enemies so that they attack other enemies. That's quite fun. Okay, so here we've got the aiming reticule, but the falconer is making the balls come out of the eagles at the side, which is strange. It's a bit weird to aim. It's like the left-hand one goes to the right place if it's on the left-hand side, and the right... It's kind of like you're always never quite aiming at where you're aiming. Just... I'll get two things that synergize with the same thing and just see which one we level up first. Yeah, I think they might have just, in Vampire Survivors, just straight up taken the speed up, slow down mechanic from this, because it's mapped to the same thing on the controller as this. On the controller, you use the left and right bumper buttons to speed it up or slow it down. And most of the time you can play through a whole level with it as fast as possible, and then when you get the boss you usually need to slow it down a little bit, because it kind of switches to being a bit more bullet helly when you get to the bosses. What are these guys? They're like... Gem springs. Yeah, let's get some gem springs. So... yeah, I really dislike the aiming mechanic with this character. I played a little bit of Risk of Rain 2. I found that there was something that bothered me about it, and I think it was mainly just like the navigation. Like, I found it very difficult to understand where I was in the level on that game. It was kind of like, it felt a bit like, oh, is this an arena or is this a exploration game? Which of these things are you trying to do with the 3D aspect of this? Yeah, let's make enemies go berserk. That's fun. Although maybe not as helpful on this level because there's fewer enemies. There's not like loads of enemies on the screen. I'm struggling to hit my gem springs because of my annoying aiming mechanic. Sorry to hear about your sleep, Connor. I've had the same thing. I've been like... last night I stayed up a lot later than I normally would just because I've been sleeping so poorly anyway. I thought, well, maybe I'll sleep better if I'm more tired. Yeah, this Falconer character is a little bit of a hard mode in terms of how it changes the aiming. Not biggest fan. I mean, Risk of Rain predates these. I played the first one quite a lot. And, I remember playing the 3D one and just being like, I'm not sure if the 3D adds what I want it to add. Feels a little bit like I'm playing Borderlands or something. This guy. I can't aim at him because of my annoying aiming mechanic. Managed to get a bounce going in their general direction then, but... Okay, we're going to get the Wretched Onion, which is literally like a direct Vampire Survivors reference. But also because I don't have any way of damaging anything when it's that close to me, because I can't actively aim because of my stupid verbs. We'll do one more on fast mode, and then I'm off. Harvest, harvest. It's time to harvest. Yeah, it's a very Moorish game. Look at those guys. Look at them go. I can pay gold to do more harvests, but I won't because it's not interesting. Okay, we're going to do basic character for the first one. Oh, this guy's fun. He has a shield that the balls bounce off of. That's a fun little... yeah, I'll go back to the previous level. I haven't done that with either of these guys. The shield is really fun. You just get like a pinball flipper, basically. Just infinitely bounce your balls back. They're like angels that are also birds. Yeah, we're quite late in the game, so the characters do get weirder. Earlier on in the game, it's just like, this is the undead level, this is the bugs level, you know? We're definitely at the stage of the game where things get weirder in that respect. We're turning that into a little gun that shoots other baby balls out of it. Shoots iron baby balls after hitting a wall. So bounces off the wall when it makes more balls. Yeah, so yeah, Robin, what Robin just said, another good example of being quite efficient with the assets, so you can go overboard with the mechanical variety. Yeah, exactly. It's the same category, and it's not necessarily just. It's not just bullet heavens. It's any game that has engine building at its core. I mean, the ratio of stuff in this is very different to Vampire Survivors. We only have about 12 levels, so all of these little like enemy models you can see, there's still quite a lot. There's like, you know, 5 or 6 per level, but there's still way fewer enemies than Vampire Survivors. And then what we think about, what does it take to make a ball in this? Well, it's like, okay, we've got like a VFX around a ball, and then we've got the code to make it behave differently. And then some of these have like power-ups that just change how a particular thing works. Like, you know, there's the passives, the more relic-y things. You've got like, okay, this makes all area of effects increase, so that's going to interact with about a third of the balls or about a quarter of the balls or whatever. But yeah, I guess it comes down to like building a bunch of these modular systems as well, so you can make lots of a thing. Only really just getting to that point with my game at the moment where we've like done enough of the work to really understand what the game is, and now it's like, okay, now we can start to systematize things and say, this is how we, you know, create lots of variety of this particular type of thing. Yeah, it's easier to add stuff to a game that's sort of a bit more abstract and gamey than something that's modeling a real world. And that's fine, it's just different types of games and different types of appeals, right? But as soon as you start to go for immersion and like believability, then that kind of just changes what your workflow and your priorities are considerably. Robin, you need to let that client be your inspiration for finishing your games. Like, I'm not completely out of the woods yet, but I did hit a point last year where I was like, okay, I can sack off this client work that I'm having to do for, like, some edgy game that I really don't want to work on, and where the team is sort of really AI forward and everything. And it does make so much difference to just be able to say no to things eventually. One of the benefits of being self-employed is you can say no to things incrementally. And the thing that, like, I had a job a couple of years ago where we did client work as a studio, and I quite liked the work we did and I liked the gigs we got. But the boss just kept, you know, volunteering me for more and more work. And it was like, look, I want to do this to a decent quality. I want to do the job well. I can't work on 4 projects at once. You know? And it was just never really taken on board, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. It was like, look, I want to be able to pick and choose what I work on a little bit here. Yeah, it just never materialized. Oh yeah, completely out of touch. But I mean, a lot of the time, there's lots of people that when they talk about the games industry or getting into game dev and stuff, they are exclusively talking about AAA, and they just don't have an awareness of anything else. And that's partly because that's like their taste as a gamer, and they just wouldn't play anything else. You know? So obviously the job situation now is not great. But the amount of people who say there are 0 jobs because they work in AAA and they would never work in anything else. You know, they wouldn't take on something as lowly as doing free-to-play mobile games or gambling or whatever. Let's fuse the bomb and the shotgun. That sounds fun. There's definitely a whole tier of people that sort of think that game dev and the industry is harder than it is because they have a particular standard of the types of project they want to work on or the types of games they want to work in, and they wouldn't go quote-unquote below that. I've never had the option to do that because I had kids quite young. Person I was with in my 20s was never sort of super amenable to the idea of like moving around for work. So it was just like, well, there's one game studio within 100 miles, and it makes this type of game, and if I want to make games, I have to work there, and I don't really have any choice. That's kind of... Get some health back. Yeah, Robin's had like 3 games in the last year where everyone's like, finish this game and release it. I think you should do Rocket Ball as the cheapest possible console couch multiplayer game that you can. Just like a dollar PlayStation Store game that people can just load up and play a game with 2 controllers with whoever they're with. Don't overcomplicate it. Just let them pick the color of their thing. That's it. It's getting very close to getting squished here. Yeah, just remember you can make like the simplest version of the thing and you can start to develop the idea and the brand for the thing and then make a second one later on. It doesn't need to be a sequel. It's like the first one can be like a episode 0, like a redux, you know? Everyone in the chat just being like, Robin, 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 Robin. The music on this level is very cold for Lamb. Listen, Owl God. I know I'm supposed to be attacking you and not everything else, but... we did it. Well, thanks for joining me for Zap Zap Pew Pew today. There were zaps, there were zaps, there were pews, and so on. I'm going to do my important life and paperwork stuff for the rest of the day. Good luck with whatever you're working on. I will be back next week. Patreon folks, new Q&A video coming tomorrow. It's about Aura, which ended up being about creative direction, I think. But, yeah, new feature on the Patreon. Last week of the month, I put up a Q&A thing. People in the blue and purple tier can submit questions. I record the answers. Everyone on every tier gets the videos of the answers. It's a nice way of doing those more Q&A things, but I don't really want to put that kind of content up on YouTube because when I did it before, it just became a bit of a drag after a while. And I much prefer over here on YouTube to present myself as As someone who will play games and reflect on them with some degree of astuteness about what's going on with the game, but not necessarily someone who is giving you advice and saying you should do this. I'm a bit more comfortable doing that within our smaller community on Patreon and Discord, because I know a lot of you, and I even in this situation, it's like, okay, there's 36 viewers, there's these guys in the chat, I know most of these people, I know these names, you come up regularly, and then 1,000 people watch the VOD, and I don't know who they are. So if I'm sat here going, yeah, you should do this, then there's lots of perhaps younger or more naive people that you talk to one person and you know their situation and you say, hey, this is what you should do with your project, and then people kind of interpret that as universal guidance, and it's not. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're finding those useful. I'm much more comfortable doing that kind of Q&A stuff. You end up making like a 20-minute video where 10 minutes of it is going, well, it depends, and that's not engaging either. So thanks for joining today, and I will see you all later.